setting up the program and running it. I know having done a lot of conferences myself, but it's a lot of work behind the scenes. And so we really appreciate your help with that. And we appreciate the invitation to your talk. Can you hear me? This is better. Is that better? Yeah, sorry. I have I got a bug in my ear just on the way, just the day before we left, and so I can't hear in my ear, and so I'm thinking this is really wonderful. So someone called me and says, "Oh, you that bill is late." I say, "Oh, I can't hear you." If they say, "Oh, you won the lottery," "Oh yeah, I can hear that." Fine. So yeah, so that's great. So we're going to talk about we're going to introduce our demo systems. So we're going to talk about an EB5 in console processing. We're going to start mostly with console processing, and then we're going to go to mostly. And so I'm really happy to have Ben Jiang to the panel, and Elizabeth Bing and David Interlight. And we're ready to get started. I've just been informed that David is the only one that's not ill. But anyway, seriously, I'm really happy to be in Hong Kong. My first came here in 1981, and it's one of my, I've been a lot of good places, and one of my very favorite places in the whole wide world is the Peak. To walk the Peak. So if you haven't walked the Peak, you should do that. So let's start out with the consular part of consular processing in EB5. Then the question, and these are the questions that I think that people, the attendees probably already have these questions, or they were downloadable. I don't know if everybody has them. But we'll go through them one by one. So the first question, I think I know the answer to this, but the 526, some of those, David and Elizabeth and I were just talking, some of the 526 petitions are about this tall. And so the question is, do you guys receive a complete copy? Do your officers receive a complete copy of the I-526 petition before they adjudicate a case?
So if you mean a complete copy, the entire folder, no, we don't. We, most of what we receive is on this day.
Okay, so is that the first would be the 526 approval notice and some background information, but on with respect to the project and all that kind of stuff, you don't see that much.
We don't see that anymore. I think we have asked and received not to see those because it's just more baggage, more mail.
Okay, perfect. That's good. Okay.
But we would ask, and if applicants feel that some of that may be helpful, they're certainly welcome to bring it. But again, like we've been saying in all the other panels, the interviewing is the most important part of the process as a concept.
So your suggestion is really like, I call it the briefcase file. So bring it in a briefcase, but don't give it to you unless you ask for it. And then of course you never have time to ask for it because the other things are more important to you. Okay, good. So answered several of these already. So do you have any suggestions or recommendations for those of us who practice EB5, or anything we should bring other than the whole file or anything else?
Yeah, not really. I think the record will show that as far as Guangzhou's adjudication and approval of EB5 visas were quite efficient. We move those cases along. As you know, we do 80 to 85% of the EB5 visas worldwide. And whenever they're scheduled, we're able to do the interviews quickly. I would say not that many, very few EB5s actually go through the administrative processing. And the record will show that we end up approving the vast majority of cases.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, the three of us were talking earlier, and that was our conclusion was that because you guys process so many and you have so much experience with it, you guys are really good at keeping the process moving and don't get hung up on little things. One thing is, we have heard some people say that occasionally in Guangzhou they will ask for proof that the money has been released from escrow. Is that sort of an aberration, or?
Yeah, I think that's an aberration. Like an IB process for the family-based relationship visas, EB5s were at the very end of a long process. So presumably checks and verifications have been done by the time it comes to Guangzhou. In Guangzhou, this is the first time we're seeing the applicant, and I have to say we're probably in a position of being more concerned with financing on the China side, not on the US.
That's helpful. And when you say that the China side, you're talking not just about the person themselves, but more their claims through their lawful source of funds and how they earn the money back.
And so a good example would be if the person has, an open source material has been convicted of bribery, that's going to call into question where those funds came from. If the person, let's say, operated a coal mine in Shanxi province, and that coal mine was one of these notorious coal mines, we might have to look a little deeper into that too.
Okay, you and President Trump are into coal mines these days. Okay, so
that was the
okay, yeah. So let's move over to the intersection of NIB and IB. So I-526 is take rubber and this kind of thing, and a lot of students that sometimes the principal, but usually the derivative EB5 beneficiary will be F1 or B1 visa or something like that. And our question as lawyers is, is there some difference when you look at someone coming in for a B1 or an F1 and they have a 526 pending or the parent has a 526 pending, do you consider it to be any different if the 526 is just filed and pending, or if it's already been approved, or how do you look at the intersection between the NIVs and the immigrant visas in these cases?
So there's something we call dual intent. We have to evaluate dual intent. So it doesn't matter if there's an existing or pending I-526 as opposed to I-130 for immigration purposes. What we're trying to determine at that point is, are you going to use the NIV as a means to circumvent like the wait time? We know a lot of, in the China case, a lot of the EB5s are doing it because they want better educational opportunities for their children. If they can afford to pay for the education and they have an EB5 pending, I don't think it's a big problem if they qualify for the F1 visa to get that F1 and go as the F1. A different example, you've got two people of my age.
29, for the record, it's 29.
Not with my wife, right? And these, let's say middle-aged people have I-526 pendings, but we don't know how long it's going to take. And they come to the NIV window and they want to go to some sort of ELITS English language course. I'm going to scrutinize that more carefully. Are you really going to go to the United States to learn English at this older age? Or are you trying some other means to circumvent the wait time for the EB5?
So that's a good way to look at it. I didn't think of it that much, but I think that's a good way. So what you're saying is it real? Do I really believe that you're going to do that, or you're just hanging out first?
Right. Are you going to use the NIV to go for the short-term purpose of the NIV, or are you using it to then enter the United States and find some other ways of adjusting status and skipping the foot of the line, so to speak?
Yeah. So do you have a question on that?
Yes, I can have a with Mr. Chen. So, for example, okay, in a different scenario, let's say the kids really got F1 visa, and like you're saying, I'd say 99.9% of Chinese investors immigrate to US based for the kids' education. So a lot of times the kids are young, they're like 12, 13, they got F1 visa to attend a private school, they pay tuition. By the way, a lot of private schools in the United States are supported by Chinese students nowadays. Without them, they would close the door a long time ago. But anyway, but they're so young, and the mom wants to be in the US to come to the kids, take care of them. So do you guys see an issue with parents with B2 visa and for them to come to the kids? Because I have seen cases where parents can't get a B2 visa, they have to place the kids on some kind of guardianship with the parents that pay, but the kids will sometimes there were incidents of abuse and stuff, and the parents really just heartbroken, but the mom couldn't get a B2 visa. Do you see?
I've heard of these situations. Unfortunately, all I can say is different. Most in China look at these differently, and obviously, different consular officers have different levels of comfort when they're issuing the NIV. It probably is going to be more difficult for the parents to get a B2 visa to go and stay long term, 6 months at a time, to accompany the children. But even for the children to get their F1 nowadays, I'm hearing that it's a little bit more difficult to get the F1 visas at the age of 12 as opposed to the age of 16, 17.
I have another related question on that. It's kind of interesting. So everybody knows the DB5 is backlogged for China. It takes forever and ever and ever. And I almost call it the gold watch visa now. As you get a gold watch, and about the time you retire, and you get your green card at the same time. So a lot of parents are doing is because it's all for the child, and so instead of the whole family going and taking the child with them, what we're seeing now is I'm giving the money to my child, and the child is going in as an investor, and the Immigration Service is approving these cases as minors. So the question I have, a little bit tweak on Elizabeth's question, is if the minor is 14 or 15 and going to school in the US, and you know that if the mom really wanted to go immigrate, the mom would have filed in the mom's name and brought the child along. But this person is actually investing in the kid's name, which means, by definition, means the parents aren't coming, have no intent to get a green card. Would that factor into your consideration about whether to issue a B2 for the mom when the kid was coming in for F1?
So you're saying that the actual investor is the minor. Okay, so up to now I haven't seen any cases like that at our window. But let's say hypothetically that is the case. I think that's going to be difficult for the mom to get a B1, B2 visa. But now we do see cases of young adults who are the primary investor. And fine, during the interview, we're going to ask them a few simple questions. We don't actually dig that deep into these questions. You just have to be able to tell us the source of the money, where the project is, and did you realize there's risk with any sort of investment? And that should be it. Now, I'll tell you a story. I had a woman once, I asked her, personally, I think she was the mistress of a rich Chinese official.
No, you don't say.
Fine, that's fine. Okay. You qualify, you can go on that visa. She sends us a note and says, please don't tell the children that I am not married to the children's father. That's fine, we'll respect that. So the interview begins, and we ask her, where'd you get the funds? Oh, I mortgaged my house. Where's your house? It's in Beijing. We're in Beijing, Chaoyang district, where she gives some address and the houses are ridiculously expensive. Obviously, half of that is no big deal for her. So next question. Where are you investing the money? Florida. Oh, well, we're in Florida. She couldn't answer the question. What is it about? I don't know. It's some resort. I'm not making this difficult. If you need to know a few basic pieces of information if you are going to be an investor. So we let her go away. She came out with more information. And in the end, we issued to her because I think she qualified for a visa and she needed to leave the country because the officials might have probably.
I believe that's a humanitarian case. So yeah, on the children, very interesting. So we're seeing the children all the time now. So we're filing lots and lots of cases for the minor children. You guys won't see them for years and years and years. There'll be old people up here like us, right? And they get there. So I'm sorry, David, do you want to ask a question?
Well, I was going to address the fact that in the last several years, we've started to see a lot more minors, we would consider minors, that are filing the petitions as the petitioner themselves, with guardians appointed as their responsible parties. So and you just answered that actually, you haven't seen any of those come through yet, and we wouldn't expect it to maybe starting this year or later year.
And another word about young adults. So let's say you're a primary investor, you're only 24, 25 years old. We probably know you're not the primary breadwinner in the family, and the money's from, a gift from your parents or something. Expect those cases to take just slightly longer with regard to consular processing, because we're going to look at these a little bit closer in terms of additional administrative processing.
So I have a related question. So I agree. I think these minor cases, David, I think they're not going to actually get to the consulate for another 6-7 years. I think I'm guessing they probably won't get there for a long time. But let's say some of the kids are really young and they get to you and they're 14. So you would ask them a little bit more. Let's say you have a 14-year-old and they come in and for whatever reason, let's pretend that I'm fast and they're not 24 but they're 14. And they come in, you're going to ask them the same kind of questions. Are you going to expect the guardian to be there to answer questions, or do you want the kid to answer the questions?
It's hard. It's something we're going to have to look at in terms of how are we going to interview, because at this point, to be reasonable, the 14-year-old is not going to know anything about the investment, where the money came from, and the last thing we want for the child to do is be prepared, to memorize the script. And then, some cagey consular officer might just throw out a different question just to throw him off and say, hey, what type of ice cream do you like? And he's just going to be all messed up.
You wouldn't do that.
Do that.
The related question is we're starting to get questions. I think by the way, if you have questions, please bring them up. So another question is we're starting to get, because children with disabilities have a lot of trouble and have fewer services, let's say, in China. And so we're getting questions from time to time if we have a child with a disability, or even an adult with a disability, adult child, and the parents give the child money and the child invests. And of course, the immigration service would approve it because there's no issue from their perspective. But do you see an issue there at the consulate if somebody comes in and they're not really capable of answering questions? Would you still approve the immigrant visa, or do you see any issues there?
We have applicants in the immigrant visa unit who are not, I would say, mentally fit. And yet we've approved those because, for example, a definition of a marriage in the FAM can be a caretaker marriage. So I think we want to be humanitarian, and if it is in accordance with the law, we would find a way to be able to prove it if everything seems above board.
So basically, in the case of an investor who has mental development disability, such as autism, something else, The question, I guess, on the EB5 interview, visa interview is, management role and kind of thing. So that be carried out by the guardian. So basically,
Yeah, we will not be able to interview the person and have to talk to a guardian. Just like when we do an interview with, let's say, a daughter of a US citizen. Unmarried daughter of a US citizen. So person's 30 years old, has autism, cannot answer the questions. Obviously, we cannot interview them and get.
Such a guardian, yeah. Actually, quite a few inquiries on this because China really don't have any services, not a lot, and there's any service for kids with disability. And actually, quite a few inquiries from parents who want to give $500,000 to the kids that go to the US. I mean, I guess that's a different issue with you come in the EB5 or you qualify for other social benefit in the US. I mean, that's a different issue. But anyway, okay.
Okay, perfect. So I had one clarification. So you said sometimes people show up in a concept that they're not mentally fit. And my question is, how many of those are lawyers? Okay, sorry. Here's a question. They're not any of us. We are all mentally ill. So then here's a question. I'll just interrupt with this one. It's a question about what about legal capacity and SEC rules on filing for a 526 reminder. That's a different question. I can answer it separately off the record if you like. Or I will come back to it. So administrative processing, you say a lot of cases, most cases don't go to administrative processing, but of the ones that you do see going to administrative processing, what are sort of the most common issues you see?
So for EB5 visas, I haven't seen so much on the sensitive technology side. I think if it goes to administrative processing, it tends to be for 3D concerns of Communist Party affiliation or membership.
Yeah, that's our experience. David, you don't see any, Elizabeth, I never see any.
I do have I know it's not case specific, I'm not supposed to ask you, but I'm just seeing, in general, like I said, the consular interviewer, I think Chinese consulate, Guangzhou consulate is the most experienced one compared with other countries, and then normally really smooth. And then recently we have seen a case where the consular officer, the money is the investment funds is a gift from the father to the son. And then at the time of the interview, the consular officer requested the gift towards non-criminal records, which the client provided that shows it has no criminal records. But regardless, it seemed like they satisfied the requirement. The case was sent back to MDC. It's been a couple months we haven't received any information. So when we send it back to MDC, that means you guys recommend the case to be revoked. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we're sending an EB5 case back to MDC. We're sending it for verification.
Okay, the client didn't have any information at the time of the interview, just always send it back to MDC. So is that I know that seems like it's the only case we haven't seen in years. I was just kind of guessing this has to do with the father's background in the aviation industry or something. I just couldn't figure it out.
I don't know the particular case, but just to talk in general, it's not so much the background, but the source of funds, right? So on the Chinese side, if the young investor, the kid could be fine, but he's taking money from, let's say, the kid's taking money from the parents, and let's say the parent has an issue in his background because he was convicted of bribery. Then with that information, it's up to you to prove that the money that you used for this project did not come from the time that you were involved in criminal activity.
Yeah, I understand. So basically, in general, that consular officer do not adjudicate source of funds because that's being adjudicated by the USCIS. Unless the consular officer at the time of the interview, for some reason, believe that the money came from bribery or something else, right? Right, some kind of information not available.
Yeah, I mean, I can say this. USCIS is supposed to do, when we know EB5 is USCIS administered program, and they're supposed to do all the checks. that's possible. But we also know that sometimes they don't have the same resources or expertise on the ground in China. So in China, we can dig a little further sometimes, and lo and behold, this person's company, and he was the person in charge of company. His company has been involved in illegal dealings. Then at that time, we may have to start processing in that case.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Let's switch gears just for a little bit on 212D3 waivers. There's a question about do you have any special requirements or special procedures for 212D3 waivers?
Okay, so just like in other IB cases I talked about earlier today, if we feel like there may be a 3D concern, we're going to give you that 229 cheat sheet, and you're going to fill out your travel history and give us your resume. And you can send it to the Guangzhou ID @info@state.gov, and then we'll look at it, and then make a determination. And if we think it actually is some sort of meaningful membership or voluntary association, we'll have to send it into Washington. And Washington will make a determination. And like I said earlier, it's taking much longer than any of us would like. And so as lawyers, if you have information that you can provide at that process, by all means, please send it in for your clients.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And in the technical question, medical exams, a lot of the students, a lot of the EB5 investors or the children of the investors are in the United States in F1. Can they do their medical exam in the US, or do they have to come back to Guangzhou to do?
As far as I understand, they have to do it in one of the 4 approved CDC certified panel of physicians in China.
If they're F1, they cannot do it in.
They cannot do it in the US.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, perfect. Okay, our last question for now is how can we help? So is there anything that you see that that bothers you a lot, or that your officers are not liking, or you're seeing things that you like that we should do more of? Do you have any guidance, a couple of tips for us?
As I mentioned earlier, I think a cover sheet is always good, executive summary that pinpoints and focuses on the argument, and then all the supporting evidence, through legalese afterwards is fine. Not for me, but for some officers, they feel like some lawyers write correspondence with a tone that is a bit not so polite. We're here to help. So if you come in and give us facts and the tone is very professional, I think that will do wonders for cooperation.
Okay, just for the record, I'm issuing a blanket apology for all the lawyers that send those kinds of things. It amazes me too. It seems like so easy. All you have to do is be nice. But I didn't hear that. Okay, so let's move over to the practitioner's perspective. Yes, David.
I'd like to have a couple follow-up questions.
Sure.
You mentioned the petition package that you received was quite slim.
Yes.
Can you show us what that would include with regard to, say, the source of funds of the if at all?
I don't think there's a source of funds documents in the petition package. It's just the basic petition I-526, and a few forms, right?
Okay, good. Now,
and again, this is also one little issue. I think last year we did close to 7,000 EB5s just in Guangzhou alone. It was 6,900 something. We're not gonna have time to go through stacks and stacks of documents. And I'll admit, nor are we actually trained to know, because a lot of documents can be falsified on the applicant side. So giving us the reams of documents is not helpful.
So an EB5 investor, one of the most critical requirements to prove is that the money they used for their investment was obtained lawfully. And that can be through many ways. But another critical component is the path of the USIS is mandated to adjudicate qualifications in that regard, but are there any special paths of the exchange and transfer of funds that you or your team has identified that you might have called into question that you could share?
You mean the money going from China to the United States?
Yeah, leaving China,
Yeah,
eventually finding its way into the project.
I mean, that's not really within our purview. I think my understanding of Chinese law is you're only allowed to transfer $50,000 per person per year. How they get $500,000 or $1 million to the United States, it makes me wonder, right? But I've heard stories of you find 10 friends and they carry the cash, or you find 10 friends and they carry the money to Hong Kong here and then they just press the button, transfer. But again, not within our purview.
Okay, so you're typically not looking at that. You're accepting what USIS has reviewed and said to you as approved.
Correct.
No, we appreciate your being really efficient on that, because I agree. I think it would be a nightmare to try to adjudicate those cases. I don't think it would provide much benefit either.
So basically, Mr. Chen, you still recommend tell our clients to bring a copy of the petition just in case, like for the interview?
Yeah, well, when you say copy of petition,
Like the 526 source of fund document?
yeah, but how thick are we talking about? I mean, we're probably not.
Okay, so no need to have the bring copy. Okay, unless you request it.
Unless we.
In that case, when I said it was sent back, you guys did request copy of the source of fund document. Okay.
We always prepare a complete packet of documents of the source of funds, all the investor, petitioner, applicant documents with an exhibit list. And sometimes there's a request for documentation in a 221G, and we've instructed our clients to find it, pull it out, and give it to your officers. So whether it's just lost because they're in that situation, or sometimes it feels like maybe it's a potential delay for a background check or something. Can you maybe instruct the officers to ask them if they may have that document that's been requested?
I can do that soon.
I was going to ask actually the opposite question of, is it so infrequent that you ever need to look at additional documentation that you would say that it's not even worth the effort to bring the file with this?
I think, I don't know about your clients, but how many of your clients actually have had their EB-5s put into 221G status for additional documentation?
That's very rare.
It's very rare.
We all applaud your section for being very efficient with these pieces.
Especially when there's so many. So let's move to the practitioner side. Elizabeth, what kind of issues are you seeing at the consular interview these days? Any problematic things or any easy things? What do you see?
I would say, when we prepare for the panel, I just say that we just really only have praises for the Guangzhou consulate for the immigrant visa processing. Really, it's been really smooth, and then we find the consular office very knowledgeable about EB-5, and the interview process is very smooth. We very rarely see problems, and my only experience is the case I just talked about that based on Mr. Chen told me maybe the information is not available at the time the source of fund adjudicated by the USCIS and contribute to the original of the file to MEC. But in general, that experience has been really positive. I do heard one incident. It's not my clients from EB-5 agent in China. They said that everyone's spreading the news. That one of the interview, the child aged out, and the child is also a student in the United States, has an F1 visa. I was told, the agent told me that the consular office canceled the students at F1 because said she has immigrant intent, she cannot return to the US, which was devastating to them because the kids go to high school in the United States, they don't really have the Chinese language, just go to college in the US. It's like a third year in the US. Now the kids are aged out, then they have one kid, that's the reason they're applying the EB-5 is for that one kid. That aged out, also the kids cannot go back to the US to study anymore. Amy go to US, because they cancel the F1 visa, and I can't go to school in China either. So the news kind of be sort of spread out, the Asian economy panic, and I just only heard it one time. Is that something that
I would say that's not common at all.
come up?
We have cases of aged out children for EB5s, even for other types of immigrant visas. And as a matter of practice, we don't really cancel the F1s, or at least we're not doing that in the last year, because you still have a chance. We still believe you have a chance to finish you should have a chance to finish your schooling. And we're going to trust that you're not going to immigrate. Now, of course, yeah, you showed you had immigrant intent, but we, as a matter of practice, now we're letting all the kids finish their F1s, and what they do afterwards is up to them.
Okay, that's good to know. It just kind of looks like a weird, yeah.
Any else, Elizabeth, any other issues that you're seeing in the?
No, I would say EB5 visa interview is the most smoothest interview for all the visa category in China. I really praise the great job because of office you're doing with such high workload, really.
I want to say one thing about the EB5 applicants we see. A lot of people think, oh, Guangzhou, you do all these EB5s, you must be seeing all these ultra rich, multi-millionaires or multi-billionaires in China, and actually that's not the case. We see a lot of middle class families. They can save money. $500,000 is not that much money for them. They've been saving for a long time. Maybe they got fortunate in the stock market. So we actually see the applicant profile is all over. They can be the very, very rich who have villas and lots of property, or they could be a middle class family from Suzhou and Nanjing or some other middle tier, second tier city, third tier city in China.
I agree, because you always hear story about all this corrupted government officials that take money in China. At least we've been doing so many EB5 cases last 10 years or so. I honestly, personally, has not encountered a case where I believe the monies come from a corrupted government official. Most of them come from like a humble beginning, worked really hard, and then I would say, especially the last 5 years, most of them are actually middle class Chinese citizens who just want a better opportunity for the kids.
Okay, great. David, do you have anything to add on the consular processing, or do you just have more praise for excellent education?
Just more praise. But I find that some of the other IB posts in Greater China, which I won't name, actually I have more trouble with them than I do with Guangzhou. One in particular, close to home, is every single case they're asking for something. So thank you.
Okay, great, perfect. Okay, David, keep the mic. What about this this huge backlog? So we'll talk about even how huge it is in a minute, but this huge backlog, what kinds of issues from this is not so much a consular issue, but just from an EB5 perspective, what are you doing with aids out solutions, delays in returning the investment and things like that? Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, there's a few things that I would like to share. One is the age out issue, and we've already touched upon that. It's become such an issue now that the wait list for Chinese, if you were to file today, was estimated by Charlie Oppenheim just a few weeks ago to be about 15 years. So that's right. We can go into the numbers, we can go into the weeds if you want, but the numbers speak for themselves and they're very easy to calculate. And there's only 10,000 visas a year available. So if we take a case now and file a petition today, we can expect the visa to become available in 15 years, and it might even just stretch longer as more of the rest of the world uses up those 10,000 visas, and there's less and less available for Chinese investors. So we could stretch on and on, longer and longer. So I kind of hope to be retired by then. So I have to consider, am I going to engage this client I typically engage for 3 steps: petition filing, visa processing, and then the I-829. So if they got their visa in 15 years, you have to wait 2 more years to file the I-829 to remove the condition. And the law says you must maintain your investment. At least right now, Immigration Service is saying that at least until you file the 829. Then after you file the 829, If you maintain your investment, you demonstrate job creation, then you can get your money back. So that's 17 years just to get their money back. That's whether you're an adult with children that are going to age out or not, or whether it's a minor child who you're filing because the parents don't really need to go, but they want the child to have the opportunity of permanent residence. You're talking about putting $500,000 somewhere for about 17 years at a minimum with very little at 0.5% interest. So that's had a huge effect on the market.
So Elizabeth, we were preparing, you were talking about this issue of longevity of representation. You had a comment about it.
Yes, I think that if we're EB-5 attorneys, we really have to tie a retirement age with EB-5. Honestly, you think about it, if you're 65, you take a client today, it'll be 15 years before they get a number of 2 more years of a conditional green card. So that's 70 years. If you're 65 today, you take EB-5 clients at 17, you can't retire till 70-some, right? So you kind of have to do your retirement planning with your, what is the most recent EB-5 case you're doing on Chennai. I just shared a story with David and I was, the early years of my immigration practice, I had an Indian client called me, from finding me on the internet at those days, and after he said he has a brother in India, when I want 30, I said fine, and kind of go on. He said, yeah, I'd like to engage you, but I have one question for you. I said, what is that question? How old are you? I said, well, what does this have to do with anything? Yeah, I'm really sure you're young enough, you can finish my case. So I felt like it was like a EB-5 Chinese clients who wanted to engage your attorney. How old are you? You're going to finish my case? Where do I find you? In Bahamas somewhere, in Hawaii somewhere, who can finish my 829? So the backlog is amazing. Honestly, that the challenge, yeah.
Just one second. I just wanted to get a comment about getting someone's visa before you retire. So we have a question from the board. This is for Ben. So if a student's visa has expired and he has a EB-5 petition filed and is pending, maybe it's even approved, the question is you're in the IB section, but is the NIB section going to be as understanding on dual intent as you are?
It depends. I mean, they sometimes will consult me on cases, but the key word here is the student visa has expired. So does that mean is the student still a student?
He's coming back to get a new visa.
Oh, it's coming back to get a new visa.
Yeah.
And so we maintain dialogue so that our NIB colleagues know that you have to evaluate your intent. And I would say in general, they're more favorable to a student who's in good standing to renew a visa, even if they have a pending IB petition.
That's changed so much. I remember in the old days, it was a completely different world. So we really appreciate that. So let's switch gears for a second. Let's talk about, as David mentioned, Charlie Oppenheimer. Everyone knows Charlie Oppenheimer. He's the guy at the Department of State who counts all the visa numbers and does the visa goals and all that kind of stuff. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what happened. So at the before I say anything about the IIUSA association, so I'm on the board of directors, and so anything that I say is not an official statement of IIUSA, it's just my own personal opinion. But at the conference, Charlie Oppenheim did his presentation as he normally does at the IIUSA events, and he put all the numbers up there and he was describing how long everything was going to take and so on. And so in the Q&A session, somebody raised their hand and said, can you just boil this down to us, Charlie? So if an investor born in China invested today, how long would it be until they got their green card? He said 15 years. And then they said, well, what about Vietnam? He said 6 years. What about India? 5 years. What about South Korea? 2 years. And so he went down the list. And so so that's what he said, and everybody was pretty shocked. And of course, everybody's WeChatting everybody back in China. So afterwards, we were standing there. I always had a chance to talk with Charlie, and I said, hey, Charlie, when you were throwing those numbers out there, did you mean that's the expected value? You expect it to be about 15 years, or is that worst case scenario? And he said, that's worst case scenario. And so I don't know if he meant worst case scenario was 15 and expected is 14 and a half, or it was 12, or what. And I've had other people say that the wait times are longer and so on. So anyway, that's the new reality. And so we were just in Vietnam and Singapore, and we'll be in China in a day or two, but we talk with people and they're saying, you know, it's going to be a little bit harder in the EB5 market to try to, you know, try to get investors to invest. So that's something, if you're a regional center or you represent projects, that's something to keep in mind. The other thing is that the future of EB5, EB5, there are two parts, right? There's the mom and pop EB5 where they set up a restaurant, hire 10 US workers. But most of the vast majority, and I think all of us would confirm this, is that the vast majority of cases are filed through investments in regional centers. And so the mom and pop program is permanently in the law. So when IMAC 90 was passed, it's in the law. So it wasn't until a couple of years later that they implemented the regional center program. The regional center program was a pilot program. It is still a pilot program, and it's been renewed. It must be like 12 times already. And a couple of renewals ago, they removed the word pilot from the program. So that's an indication we think that Congress wants to keep extending the program. But the current status of the regional center program is that Congress extended the program temporarily again until the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. And so the expectation, at least my expectation, is that nothing will happen between now and then on the legislative front because everybody's running for Congress. And then, of course, nothing, and then it will likely be extended. Nobody will want to do anything until November because that's the election. And then after the election, people don't start until January. So if you start adding this all up together, I think from the legislative front, I don't expect anything to happen for at least a year, it seems, and more likely than even longer than that because they're fighting about what the rules should actually be. On the regulatory side, the Immigration Service has proposed regulations to increase to impose lots of different rules, but some of them are integrity measures and things like that. A lot of it has to do with the TEA, but the main thing is that they're planning to increase the minimum investment amount in a targeted employment area to be 1.35 million, and the regular areas to be 1.8 million. So the question is, and this is totally my personal opinion, the question is whether those regulations will actually go into effect. And so my personal view, and this is my personal view, is that I think Senator Grassley, who basically the fight in EB5 now is a fight between rural and urban areas. And so urban people want to build their projects wherever they want to. The people in the rural areas want people to build in the rural areas, and they hope to do that by making it harder for people to build in the places that they really want to build in the cities. And so this is a big fight. And so I think Grassley really wanted the Immigration Service, and he actually put some of his own people over there into the Immigration Service. And so he put the EB5 regulations out there as a means to try to get the urban people to the table. And so I think that my view is that I think it's going to be very difficult. If Grassley feels the New York real estate interests pushed him aside on the legislative level, I think it's also very likely that at the administrative level, you have the New York real estate interest in chief running the country. I think it's hard. I mean, I think it seems that they would still have some pull there. So I don't expect them to happen, but they might. The last thing I want to mention is on the litigation front. So our good friend Ira Kurzban, at the IIUSA meeting, he has announced that he's in the process of preparing a complaint to file a class action on trying to get the government to try to get the court to agree that the number of the 10,000 that EB5 numbers is not 10,000 visas, not one for each man, woman, and child, but it was intended to be 10,000 investors. So if each family has, typically has an average of 3 people, if you take mom, dad, and child, if you could change that so only one of them used a visa, then you effectively triple the number of visas available. And so Ira I don't think he's filed yet, but he's going to file pretty quickly. And so that might be some opportunity of becoming law. So that's all we have. I think we're pretty, Jared, we're pretty close. I mean, 5 minutes. Okay, so
Couple things.
yeah, David, you want to
Just a couple of things I'd like to comment. So for the EB5 practitioners, this long wait is not really that special if you do family-based immigration, right? Especially brothers and sisters. So we recognize that. We're not just being selfish and crying about that. As far as the regulatory change and what you just apparently there is some language in the Federal Register or other congressional discussions that back in 1990 with regard to visa allocation. So there is some language that suggests that is a proper interpretation. I do feel that as far as there's a lot of people in the EB5 industry that pushes for at least a congressional change to make that true. And I always want to remind them that many of them are not immigration lawyers. Even EB5 lawyers are not necessarily immigration lawyers. I want to remind them of the 4 million plus beneficiaries of family-based petitions that are waiting around for many years. And if you're a congressman, what kind of political suicide could that be if you supported letting, and I see this a lot in articles, letting the rich people jump in front of the line. So I don't see a congressional solution that we can answer that, just maybe the courts.
Speaking of rich people jumping in line, because legislative rules should be under the new proposed legislation. The most recent draft before the whole thing fell apart was this program, I call it the Lucky 7,000 Club. What they did is they said, oh, if people invest outside of a targeted employment area, up to 7,000 of them will get, they would be able to use the worldwide quota. And so if you think about it, what difference that make? But if you think about it, what it really meant is you already have, 25 years of Chinese in line for EB5. And then what you do is you allow these 7,000, you give them, you take it, basically you issue 7,000 stickers that they can put on their Chinese passport that says, rest of world. So what that would have allowed is very, very clever. But it's really harsh for the Chinese already in line. But what it would have allowed is it would allow 7,000 Chinese investors or EB5 beneficiaries to use a worldwide quota to cut in front of the Chinese that are already in the line. And effectively what this did, or would have done, it would have passed. It would have created 7,000 new visas for Chinese investors out of nothing. So that was very interesting. One last question I have here is, what about the legal capacity and SEC rules when filing an I-526 for a minor? Any problems with USCIS? We worried about that, but that's been resolved. We have dozens of cases.
Yeah, we have got about over 40 some minor investor cases approved for Chinese investors. They are, and we kind of stopped at age 14 to because the reason we stopped at 14 is we previously really don't know where the line is, because you're allowed to sign the immigration form on your own if you're 14. So the immigration lawyers feels like it's not safe to stop at 14. Right now with a 15-year backlog, we're looking at this age. I like this CNB poster I told Kyle. That's our new investor face right now. So can we file for kids for a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old? Yeah, so from the Chinese law and the US law perspective, there's no distinction distinction between investors who file 2 years old or 15 years old. I mean, legally, there's no distinction. So we're probably going to see the push next on this age. Anyway, yeah. If as one thing was one says that I did talk to Charles Abraham afterwards about the litigation, and there's strong language in the legislative history to support that one visa for it's for 10,000 investor visa, not including family member. Charlie said if the lawsuit is successful, that will reduce the Chinese backlog from 15 to 5 years.
And probably eliminate the other backlog.
Yeah, eliminate backlog for all other countries. So let's keep our finger crossed.
Well, thank you all for a great panel for helping us out. And thank you for spending your afternoon with us.